So, hello everyone. So, we've got something really exciting and different today on History Spark. We've got Antony Cummins, a ninja and samurai expert, doing an interview with us. So, Anthony, do you mind just explaining a little bit about your background, your current projects, anything like that, and just a general introduction for our audience here on History Spark?
Hi, everyone. My name's Antony Cummins, and basically, I set out to answer the question: what did the samurai and ninja really do? What's their history? What do they actually do? So, over the last 15 years, we have published and produced many books: ancient ninja scrolls, samurai scrolls, history books, and mini YouTube documentaries. And basically, if you would like to follow me, there'll be a pinned link, and you can go straight to one of my documentaries. And if you'd really like to help me, guys, could you get a copy of How to Be a Modern Samurai? You'll see the books behind me as we chat, and basically I'm also on Audible there. But beyond that, let's get on and have a nice chat about samurai films and see if we can find a good samurai film.
Yes, that'd be amazing because we've definitely got some great samurai TV shows. So let's see if we can find something for the film section. The first movie I think we should probably discuss, and the one that's probably the most popular is The Last Samurai. I thought it was a great film. I really enjoyed it. It does get a lot of hate, I know, but for historical inaccuracies and things of that nature. But I think it's a very good introductory film to samurai life, samurai culture. I think it depicts the era well, but can you give us a little bit of information on what you think of The Last Samurai?
Yep, I think it's the worst bloody film I've ever seen. I hate that film. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Because first of all, let me tell you, everyone, it's not about historical accuracy. I really don't mind. For example, one of my favorite films is 300. That is totally historically inaccurate, but I absolutely love it. That's how to make a good historical, adaptation. But Last Samurai, we're talking 2004, 2005, roughly, around then. Kingdom of Heaven had come out. I love Kingdom of Heaven.
Director's cut's great, yep.
Oh, director's cut, perfect. So Gladiator comes out in 99, yeah, you got the Matrix and all that. Then you get Kingdom of Heaven, and you're like, okay, you get feeling going. And then the trailer came up, Last Samurai. I was like, this is going to be so good. It was I'm going to sidetrack here. It's the same as Transformers. I hate Transformers because
I agree with that.
Robots on holiday, ice skating. It's robots on ice. It's just, they're always skating about in the sunshine and everything's happy and nice. We're blowing stuff up. So it was the same with Last Samurai. You have one of the darkest, most gothic cultures you could have. And it was like all the battlefields were on open, sunny days, and there's the good guys, there's the bad guys, which isn't a problem in film, but it was like, it's totally inaccurate in the sense that the samurai were sort of, they're still wearing armor and they've got swords, and the modern people had guns. Actually, samurai from at least the 1560s, which is 300 years, that loved guns. They couldn't wait to get more of them. They were hoarding them in one of the biggest gun things, and they were shooting everybody. But once the Tokugawa family took hold of them, they basically said, right, we're going to stop guns to a certain level, and you can sort of go back to swords a bit more because we're controlling arms. But then when the guns came back from the West, they loved them again. Yep, give us them. They were buying them up left, right, and center.
Oh, cool. Because that was one of my questions I was going to say, because samurais have been using guns for centuries at that point. Is that like historically inaccurate that the samurais were not using guns at that point? They should have been using some guns, you think?
Yes, absolutely. Well, no, we do know. So what that film basically is, it's not bad in the sense that it says there's the old way and the new way coming in, and well, actually, the samurai were on both sides. It was some samurai wanted the old ways, some samurai wanted the new ways. And realistically, it was about where did the money go. So everybody who was farming, paying taxes, your money either goes to a central new government or it goes to each samurai clan. And they were arguing about what should happen. And absolutely, they were picking up Western weapons. They were trying to get into Western dress. They were doing all sorts. They were changing bit by bit as it went along. And it lasted about 10, 15 years, this changeover. Last Samurai, is it right that there's new weapons, there's old weapons, there's old ways, there's new ways, but it wasn't like on that side is one of them, they were all mixed. So what I would say is, this is what gets me, is if you want to make a film about a Western guy getting in Japan in an exciting time, it should have been a Jesuit priest or the Protestants when they finally come, which is a bit later, but you could squeeze in about the Sengoku period, which is 1570, 1590. Up to 1600, and there you could have had the most amazing gruesome battle scenes, no modern technology, all medieval with Western people as well.
So thanks for the clarification.
So what they used to do in the battles, they'd actually sort of lay up ambush troops. So that samurai would have never just charged in there. What they'd have done is they'd have sent forward scouts all the way, and those scouts would have used whistles to go backwards. They may have even fired guns up. Communication back problems. They'd have just avoided them. They are stood there in a line in a forest. That cavalry would have just gone, okay, just waiting, just wait.
Okay.
What are you gonna do?
Do you know who Tom Cruise might have been based on, or is that just, do you think, completely made up for the film?
No, there are a few there that did go over, and they did. And to be honest, I didn't study them so much because I study the 1600s and try and go further back, whereas this is 1850. So there are ones fighting without a doubt.
Okay, great. Anything else? Final comments on The Last Samurai before we move on to the next movie?
Last Samurai, right? Okay, it is. I think it was one of those films where it was the end of the medieval romance era for film. Yeah. So do you remember, like in the old days, you've got the castle, the dragon, the maiden, she's sort of like the dragon, the shining white knight. But then with Kingdom of Heaven, it's like Kingdom of Heaven comes, they start getting rid of that. A lot of medieval films start getting rid of that idea. But in Japan, they still have it. The perfect samurai warrior, meditation. The simple fact is samurai almost always fought samurai. So who's this bad guy that they're always fighting? They're fighting other samurai. It was a very political, powerful, maneuvering. If we do another video, I'll tell you all about the ninja. The ninja scene is the worst thing, guys. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's everything I have for The Last Samurai. So next movie I think we'll discuss now is 13 Assassins, if that's cool with you.
Yep.
Yeah, I already started watching it a little bit yesterday. It's a good film. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's just straight up action, a lot of build up to the final battle. But I think it's really well done. The acting is really good. Cinematography is really great as well. But yeah, what do you think about the 13 Assassins overall as a film?
So that, I think, is a wonderful film. I think that's when people ask me what are the best ninja films, I always get them to 13 Assassins, because that is the closest you get to like a real sort of ninja film. So you got samurai trained in espionage. One of them's got explosives technology, and they infiltrate, and they're tracking a target, and they have to kill someone. Of course it's over the top, and at the end everything's falling all over, and it's too much. But their travel clothes are like that. They're black. They're dark. There's no insignia on them. There's no banners, and they're like, we're going off to do this job. And we know, actually, at the time of Last Samurai, there were Westerners there, and they were being assassinated left, right, and center. And one guy was so scared of the assassination attempt, he shot himself and killed himself because he was so scared of what was going on. And they were genuinely being attacked like that along routes.
So I just wanted to touch on the villain for this film, because there is like a genuinely just horrible, easy to hate villain in this movie. And I was wondering, do you have anyone in mind that might have been that truly evil? Because this man just has no morals, no values. Or do you think that was just a little bit too overdone?
No, you do get, well, a problem with history, as always, is whoever's writing the account, the other person, really like they are. But yet you get, throughout all the samurai history, you get really horrific things. Like, of course, you get samurai who have their own wives killed, Some samurai have their own children killed, and that's just part. And then a samurai had life and death over his own children, and his family. They could mess about. He just got rid of them. There are ample examples of that, people just getting rid of their wives that way. And then, of course, we have despicable things like a gang of samurai weren't allowed into a temple to collect something, so they killed the monks and burnt the temple down. There's plenty of examples where somebody is genuinely like doing something you think, oh, that is too much.
Yeah. Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. I have never seen such a one-sided villain. Like, there was nothing redeeming about this villain at all, and he just, like usually in the films, the villain will have like at least a couple of really close allies that he can trust. But this man was hated by everyone. It was kind of just seemed like the only thing that he had was the samurai code, which he was taking advantage of. But like we've already said, that samurai code didn't really exist like it's depicted in films.
Basically, my favorite villain for a start is the Kurgan from Highlander.
Okay.
He is better than Darth Vader. And that puts you back on, when you talk samurai films, is the Highlander does have hints of samurai,
Yes.
elements in it. And of course, if you follow the Highlander thingy, you get that. But no, you are right. It is a horrible villain, horrible action.
So I was going to say, like, during that time period, if you are a samurai, not of the upper echelons, but somewhere in mid-society, and someone comes into your home, a higher-ranking nobleman or samurai, and, they totally take advantage of your hospitality, mistreat your family members, the women, does that samurai of the lower grade have any power or, kind of course to take some kind of justice or anything of that nature?
That's a bloody difficult question, Max, but I will try. That's actually a really difficult question. However, so a samurai does have a way to go against the upper echelons, but it's really difficult in society. It's top-down society, without doubt. What a samurai can do, no matter what rank the other person is kill him, but then commit suicide. So if he kills that man, so say there's a man, like in your hypothetical situation, there's a man taking the mick, he's trying to rape his wife, or do something, do you know what I mean? Or doing something. He could kill him outright, but then he'd probably commit suicide, and then it would go before like a judge system. And what happened in Japan is, if it was deemed that was a crime, all of his family might commit suicide. So this is where the Japanese art of killing yourself comes in, because actually, if you don't do that and you're a criminal, they will execute you and your family. But sometimes killing yourself that way is deemed as a way that, yes, it's an acceptable way out of the situation. Everybody's will carry, your clan can carry on. Or what they might do is confiscate half of your domain, your property. It's the same as a samurai can actually, any lord could kill any of his men. But if you keep killing your own men, they'll leave you and go to a different lord, which they used to be at a samurai in the early. So the more ruthless you are, the less people will follow you. So it's that balance between the two.
So there is a procedure they can follow to get some sort of justice, but like any kind of court, that justice isn't guaranteed. But I guess
that's not guaranteed.
They won't be around to see if it works out in their favor or not.
No, not at all. And the other one, which is a terrible, terrible thing, is if a peasant is annoyed with a samurai lord or something like that, he can put a petition in and take him to court, but the peasant has to die. He has to be executed. Even if he wins, he's executed. So, like, what it means is the village will nominate one person to go and take the trial. They will be killed, but the village then might get the correct response.
Yeah, so it's like the greater good, but the sacrifices need to be made to achieve that victory for the rest of the village. But so again, you're not around to see that victory.
No, you just hope it works and off you go.
So another thing I noticed in this film that was a little bit different to some of the other samurai movies I've watched is it seems like pretty much every samurai in this film has their head shaven, where in other films it's more like a 70-30 split, 50-50, but this one just seems to think all of them have shaven heads. Is that quite accurate, or was it more of a mix?
It was a slight mix. Now, this is actually a question often is addressed. You've hit a right good question. There are different sort of levels and times and areas. But yes, most people would shave the front of their heads and have the top knot in. We do know that sometimes people just had short clipped hair, but 99% of people are going to be like that. I know we've got Age of Samurai on this list, and that was a problem there. A lot of actors don't want to shave their heads. Whereas in Japan, they are like, if it's a Japanese film, they will all shave their heads for it pretty much properly.
So it comes with the role. You're expected to shave your head.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So any closing statements about the 13 Assassins? In my opinion, I think it's probably the best intro film to samurai cultures. It's, if you're a casual viewer, you're really going to enjoy it. If you want to learn just more about the history, you'll get a bit of that. But what's your final opinion on 13 Assassins?
The 13 Assassins is an amazing film to get into it, and it's great all the way through, except at the end, it goes crazy like all Japanese cinema, where it's way out of proportion, way silly, much. But before that, it's well worth doing.
So out of the books you have behind you, any of them assassin related or anything like that? That might be a good recommendation for someone that likes 13 Assassins.
Yes. The problem with assassins is they did have assassination, but your closest figure is a ninja, but it's not an assassin. He's not born to be an assassin. And this is the Bansen Shukai. So it is the 1676. It's the biggest ninja scroll we have from there, all translated. How to be a ninja, the Book of Ninja. And we did it 2 versions. We did that and also Audible. So you can, if you've got any Audible things, guys, do that.
My mistake. They are not just assassins. They were more of a reconnaissance, maybe, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Information gatherers.
Yeah, but that is, they were definitely sent to track down and either arrest. So a lot of the time, you're sent to arrest someone, but that arrest generally means you get them, stop them, and make them commit suicide, or bring them back so they can commit suicide. So it can all be, protocol can be done correctly. So yeah, you know, you're not far off. But they would have done absolutely. 13 assassins is the closest you'll get, except for, I also love, have you seen Blood and Bone with Jay White?
I've heard of it and I've never seen it, no.
Yeah.
It's not a movie anymore, but the next thing I wanted to discuss was Age of Samurai, Battle for Japan, a Netflix original docuseries. I already know you're probably not going to be a fan. Most people that are serious about samurai history don't like it. But I think it introduced a lot of new information to me. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think the presenters in it, the historians they brought on were the most engaging. Some of their information didn't seem overly accurate, but overall I thought it was well paced, great cinematography, interesting battles. I would consider it a good one-time watch, but what do you think about Age of Samurai, Battle for Japan?
Well, there's a bit of a backstory to this. They originally contacted me to be a historian on it, and but I then sent them all my issues with it, and they ditched me. Oh, yeah, too many problems. We don't answer it. So okay. I am not. That's not a problem. I personally, out of all of us, like there's the Shogun who's reviewed it, and I think Metatron, the big YouTubers, and they have destroyed it. They really destroyed it. Like it's horrendously bad. Now, my point is it's okay to change history and historical things if it's going to be the cool factor. If it's clearly not a documentary film, but it's got the cool factor. Like, again, I always use 300. They've got a rhino charging at the Spartans, right? A rhino. Yes. There's no way they had a rhino charging at the Spartans. But he's amazing. He's like standing aside ever so gracefully. No problem. I'm with you. Okay. Because what that film did is it made the Spartans more famous than they've ever been. So Age of Samurai could do the same. They could have done the same, made it a little bit cool and quirky, but it didn't. It was just, I did try to defend it because I tried, but I probably was too kind to it. It is a terrible, terrible documentary. However, it's free on Netflix, so why not? It does introduce you to the idea of the unifiers of Japan. So the idea that Japan was a war-torn country. They get unified, and there's the unification people in there. Obviously, the armor is wrong. The haircuts are wrong. They've got weird ponytails going on. Like it's a bit like pop culture-y type. But so even though Nick from the Shogun and Metro would kill me for saying it, at least watch. If you have no idea about samurai, watch it and realize about 30% is correct.
Which is pretty terrible for a documentary, though.
Pretty much, but it does, as I said, it gives you the rise of like Oda Nobunaga, the big, he's meant this despot, this horrible guy who's killing all the monks and everything, but he probably followed Bushido closer than most people, the way of the samurai, actually, but it was horrific. Okay. So,
So out of the 3 unifiers that they depicted in the series, which one would you say was the most accurately depicted?
Oh, I'm going to say none of them because they were like, I'm not just getting out. One, I haven't seen it since it came out, so I couldn't tell.
Fair enough.
But they do stereotype Oda Nobunaga. So the stereotypes of it. Toyotomi, so Oda Nobunaga is the first one. He's meant to be the tyrant, the horrible guy who murders everybody. Then you got Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who's meant to be like the underling, who's clever and sly, like a rat. And then, of course, you've got Tokugawa Ieyasu, who's, peaceful and waits and all this. No, they were all pretty horrible. They were all pretty horrible. So I said this before, Tokugawa Ieyasu, the last one to unify it, basically made a deathbed promise and said, you know what? I'm going to look after your son, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. I'm going to make sure he gets on the throne and we'll all be happy people. But 10 years later, he murders him, murders his entire family, pulls his castles down and takes the power for himself. So, how nice can they be? So hundreds of thousands of people, if not tens, so hundreds of thousands of people die because he didn't want to let the other family rule.
that was definitely not depicted in the docu-series
Yeah,
in
yeah,
any way
they
or
don't
form.
show you
No way. The history is so much better than what was presented anyways. They should have stuck with the facts.
And they filmed it in a brick studio. There was bricks everywhere. The Japanese didn't have bloody brick. You know what I mean? So it's filmed in the back of some warehouse somewhere, you know.
Netflix, you can afford better.
Yeah, do better.
Yeah. So just to help you revisit Age of Samurai once again, I think we'll share a
Oh,
clip with you and
give me
the battle
nightmares.
scene. All right, so this is the Battle of Okazama from Age of Samurai, Battle for Japan. Can you talk us through what you like, what you don't like?
So again, for cheapness, they do it in a forest. They always do this so they don't have to have a big thing in the background, but that's okay. Battles did. But what's good here is they're actually using the weapons. They are seriously using guns, which is good. This was a big problem. People were guns doing it. But that guy, it's difficult, but a lot of the gunners actually had proper armor on. They had swords on. They've gone for the cheap option. But there's nothing actually wrong with this scene, in my opinion. It's all right. People in melee, moving around, guns being shot, and not so many people on horseback. But the armor is wrong, of course. The hairstyles are wrong, you know. Yeah. But you can't really. It is filmed in Canada, but I think it was Canada, and you can't. They've done a job of hiding that. That could be Japan. I've been through many forests in Japan that are like that.
It's not that far to get to Japan. They should have just went there. Yeah. So any closing statements of Age of Samurai? I recommend it. Not overly enthusiastically, but I think it's a good gateway to Japanese culture and general history. What do you think?
If you've got spare time, watch it. It's free. If you've got access to Disney Plus, then the Shogun is well better, well worth your time. Don't choose between the two. Go for Shogun. But if you fancy both, why not?
Yeah, fair enough. Can't go wrong with free. So the next movie I wanted to discuss with you is one of my personal favorite samurai movies, and the classic movie Ran. I think it's great. It's a bit slow, not very action heavy. The battles are few and far between, but the story is great. Acting is brilliant. And I think, for the time, the cinematography, the special effects, everything is just great, even by today's standards, I would say. So do you have any overall opinions about Ran and the film itself?
Well, it's Akira Kurosawa, isn't it? Film, I think if I remember correctly. And if you guys don't know, Akira Kurosawa, basically Akira Kurosawa is the Japanese director. So he did the famous Seven Samurai, Thrones of Blood. He's also got me Yojimbo, Sanjiro. And to be honest, I'll get back to Ran, but Akira Kurosawa, his other films I think are better when he's in black and white and he's sort of left, because he does small, compact films much better.
Yes. Now
that doesn't mean Ran's not good. I like Ran. I've seen Ran, but I've seen it a long time ago. And to be honest with you, I vaguely remember the story, but it is well worth a watch. He is a good director. He is solid in what he does. But I think what they tried to do is split between a Western and a Japanese audience, and I don't think it worked. I think the over-colorization of the 1980s made it look a bit, they've just done, I think, the 4K version, and that's really quite nice. But the makeup is very Japanese theatre. So if you don't know, Japanese cinema is just an extension of Japanese theatre. So you get lots of, over dramatics.
Yeah.
Like the guy,
very Bollywoody.
Yeah, it's totally like, it's totally like jump into a dance scene. So, that's good. So if we will, if it's okay, later talk about Akira Kurosawa. But the problem with Ran is it's a very, very good film, but the costume is for the budget they had, they tried to make the scope too big. So whereas Last Samurai did some really good costume, when you got in close, the Last Samurai costume was excellent. But with that, they literally got prop sort of costumes, which used to work for him in black and white. So that was fine in black and white. But now you move those prop off-the-shelf costumes to color and high, Hollywood style. It loses that. But it does remind me a lot of one of my favorite films, which is Excalibur, the King Arthur Excalibur. And I love that film. The red, gorgeous sunsets with the very oversaturated colors and the armor. I liked that.
So you did mention costume design, and that's something I picked up on as well. So the primary character is supposed to be like, fearsome warlord, daimyo, ruler of the land. but he never wears armor, even though he's going into enemy territory. He's still walking around in like a robe. He's in the middle of a battle and his sword breaks. Can you think of any plausible reason why in this film they didn't want to put armor on this aging daimyo? It just didn't make sense to me.
Zero. I can't think of any
Okay.
reason.
Fair enough.
Usually, what happens is you have what's called the Hatamoto Command Group. So that is the circle around the Lord. He's usually got very flashy armor on. He's usually got a big helmet. He often doesn't wear the helmet. They do that wrong a lot of time. They would have it on a banner pole, like it's called a helmet stand. In English, it'd be just translated as helmet stand. And his flags are there, and that they'd have something called the Great Dragon Banner. And this was the great banner that stood there, and that's your Lord. And if the enemy gets close to him, you have failed your Lord. He shouldn't be in arrow reach. He shouldn't be in anything. And of course, that Lord has got to give the orders through his generals to make sure that doesn't happen. But him in no armor, off the top of my head, no, that sounds ridiculous. Unless it was a bravado thing, like they do say, "You will never touch me. My men are my shield." You know, my tactics are so good, you can't even get near me. But if the fact that he's got a broken sword and there's stuff going wrong, then he should have put armor on.
So one of the scenes in the film is right in the beginning, the father disowns one of his sons. So what impact does that have on like a samurai? If a father disowns his son, does he lose his status? Does he lose all his wealth, his military? What would be the impact of such a decision?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely would lose everything. If your father's disowned you and you're not in our clan, you don't get any money, you don't get any land. Samurai are 100% land owning based. They are. If you own the land, it creates rice. The rice is sold to the population, like the artisans, the makers, the craft makers, and that money from the population generates enough for the armor, the soldiers, the war, the campaigns. Without that basis, no war ever exists. So if you don't mind, I'll just talk about this. So I did this book called The Ultimate Art of War, guys. Sorry about the shadow. And basically, the samurai loved Sun Tzu's Art of War, but I couldn't, every time I read it, I had version after version after version, and I didn't understand it because everybody pretends to understand it. So what I did is I wrote a book about it and illustrated it and pulled it all out and made sure we know what did Sun Tzu say. So this is the thing. It is, and Sun Tzu is like, all of war is based on how many families you're going to disrupt. Once you go to war, they have to feed you, and that's it. And you have to take the right amount of men out. So the entire basis of a samurai is that someone above him gives him the land to be farmed so he can afford his armor and the time to feed it, so he feed himself so he can train for war. And then he gets his orders for war and they all go together. Normally, so I don't really know about being thrown out of a family, to be honest. That's a good one. Normally they execute them. So if you want out of them, they just execute them. I mean, so Tokugawa Ieyasu had his own son killed. So his own son, but some people have rumored that his son was too wild at heart, and he was like, this is not good in a clan and they might take over. Like even you go to Takeda Shingen, he's a very famous samurai. And from memory, he basically killed his own father and took over his own clan. You know what I mean? So father's like, right, get rid of him. He's wrong. Get rid of him. And they'll just execute them. So they can be also married off. So what a father might do is marry him off into another tribe, sort of the clan, and be like, right, you're going to marry this clan. It's 400 miles away. We're creating an alliance. Off you go. That's a better way to do it.
Makes sense. Rather bring in some new allies than kill your potential heir.
Yeah, pretty much.
Another scene I wanted to discuss was one of the daimyos. He gets killed in a battle and they present his hair to his wife. I've never seen that before. Is that true?
So was it the hair or was it the head?
Just the hair. They gave he had a ponytail, so they gave just that ponytail in a box to the wife.
Really? No, I don't know about that. That's usually so when samurai take heads, and this is a topic I've done a lot of, is they will take the head and so a samurai takes the head, he then takes the string off his sword, the cord, puts it through the mouth and ties it up so nobody can steal it. Or he'll put it in an old granny's shopping bag, the net bags, they'll take them. If there's too many heads, they'll take the nose or they'll take the lips downwards. But the point, and cutting the top of a hair off a samurai scalping, I think is not. But the fact that it's done by Akira Kurosawa makes me doubt myself because he was a good researcher. So if Akira Kurosawa said it's right, but I've not come across it. I wouldn't absolutely say it's not a possibility, but I do know cutting a samurai's top knot off is really disrespectful. So I would say that's probably maybe Hollywood saying you can't show a decapitated head. So he said, okay, well, let's put some hair in there instead, maybe.
Okay, I think you might be right because there was another scene where they needed to decapitate someone, and that was all done off screen. Even when the head was presented, it was like from the backside, so you don't see nothing. So I think that could possibly one of the reasons. So I think that's everything I wanted to discuss about Rand. Any final comments on the film before we move on?
That one, as I say, guys, is a very long, slow film. It's worth a watch, but it's sometimes hard to get hold of. A lot of the times, Akira Kurosawa films are not often free on Netflix or Prime or anything like that. They tend to not be. So if you're going to watch a long samurai film by Akira Kurosawa, go for Seven Samurai instead. Seven Samurai is by far the better film.
Great recommendation. If anybody does want to watch either of those films, I think if you're in the UK, you can get them from Sky Store. That's where I watched Rand quite recently. And just a bit off topic, we mentioned 13 Assassins. That's available for free on ITV if anyone's in the UK. So definitely go check that out. The next topic I wanted to discuss is a little bit different, but a lot of people have said Star Wars, the Jedi are inspired by samurai. Is there any kind of information you have about that, or do you think that's an accurate assumption?
I think it's a very accurate assumption. First of all, 1976, 75, you're talking when he's starting to write these things. First of all, you've just come out of the Bruce Lee phenomena. Bruce Lee was massive in the West. And of course, that dragged along with it Japanese karate. And Japan was becoming very, very popular. And it was, even though this is a little bit after Star Wars, in 1980, the first series Shogun was out, which made it, Japan was the coolest thing in the world. So you are right at the beginning of cool Japan. And I think George Lucas himself has said, if I remember rightly, Darth Vader is based on a samurai. He's totally a samurai. And the Jedi are samurai. Not only that, they are wearing, without doubt, Japanese clothes. They've got the fold over karate thing, but also they are using the Force, which is the Taoist Tao, so the way in Taoism. So if in Japan a lot of people say you don't get that much Taoism in Japan, but you do. You absolutely do. You get Confucianism, which is your rules and regulations. You get Buddhism, which is your reincarnation of your soul. You get Shinto, the gods, but you also get Taoism, which is the way the universe and the energy moves. He absolutely used this Eastern idea of the one universal force that binds us all together, and we're all up. So for example, yin and yang is without doubt dark side and light side of the force. It goes through everything. It pervades everything. It's there. You can use it if you need it. That is just out and out Taoism.
I totally get exactly where you're coming from. I can really see the references in the original trilogy, a little bit in the prequels. Do you think it still kind of carried that samurai tradition in the latest movie 7, 8, 9? Have you seen them?
I have seen 7, 8, 9, but I must admit I was a massive Star Wars fan, and since Disney have got hold of it, I'm throwing myself off a bridge. I'm just, I'm not. It's just I'm not watching the Acolyte. Don't care. The Mandalorian annoyed me. Really, really annoyed me because it was like the greatest bounty over ever, and some Jawas steal his ship and he asks for it back and he can't get it back and he didn't even lock it. It was like, what are you doing, man? Who wrote this rubbish? So but going back to the Jedi and Japan is, I don't understand Jedi robes. So Jedi robes don't make sense because Luke's wearing them, right? But his uncle wears them at the same time. So it's like it's a thing from Tatooine. But then the Jedi Council all have them wearing what his uncle is wearing from Tatooine. But Luke is because it just got famous. So then Luke drops the robes and goes for black. But all the other Jedi are wearing robes. And you're like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And nobody questions it. Qui-Gon Jinn's wearing them. And it's just like, but that isn't his robe later on. It just seems that everybody's misremembered the original films. Because Luke leaves Tatooine and sort of drops that, doesn't he? And goes for the black collar. The black collar that he's got.
Yeah. Goes for that. Movie 5, I think that.
But he is wearing it in. Yeah, and I think he's wearing. So you got A New Hope where he's wearing Tatooine clothes, but I don't think anyone else is wearing them except when you go to Menace and they go back to Tatooine. Everyone's wearing Jedi robes again. And you're like, his mum's wearing. I'm like, somebody sort the bloody Jedi robes out in this film. Don't make no sense.
You know what? I never thought about it till you mentioned it, but you're absolutely right. Doesn't make sense, does it?
Doesn't make any sense. Like his uncle wearing it is the total giveaway of that. And the other one is clearly Darth Maul is 100% based off a 1980s ninja.
Okay.
No question. He's got the wrap over gi. He's got the obi belt going around. He's got the flowing pants, and you know, absolutely, he's jumping around. That is, you know, you've got to remember, it came out in '99, so the ninja boom was just sort of leaving. It was still there. It was still there.
So I guess the Jedi do a lot of meditation. Was that something quite common for the samurai to spend hours meditating or anything like that?
Absolutely. They did Zen Buddhism. So a lot of the time, so Buddhism comes in multiple forms. You get obviously the original Indian Buddhism, and then what happens is it goes to China and it gets changed into with Taoism, and you end up coming out with like a very different Zen, and you get Zen, and they all had a go at Zen. Without a doubt, that was a very popular samurai thing. At the time of Last Samurai, when that finished, what actually happened in Japanese history is they stripped Buddhism back, they got rid of the Tao, they got rid of everything and created state Shinto. They went back to their nationalistic, and of course then you get World War II and all that, the nationalism and everything comes in. But then after that, Buddhism just leaked back into Japan, and they reopened the temples and everything went ahead.
Okay, so is Buddhism the predominant religion in Japan right now, you would say?
I would say yes, without a doubt. Yeah. Of course, in Japan, Shinto is always the underlying thing, but 99% of the time you are going to a Buddhist temple. Very few. So a Shinto shrine is normally a little shrine in the road that you'll give something to because it's your local god. But most people, when they go to shrines, they go to temples, they go to a Buddhist temple. So it is debatable whether you could say, because their national one is the big one, that's Shinto. But most people I ever met in Japan, they are off to a Buddhist, you know, temple. The monk I go to see is Buddhist. You know, they've merged back together. So what you'll find is a small Shinto shrine inside a Buddhist temple. So when you go to the temple, you go to the shrine and the temple, and you do 2 prayers.
Okay, very interesting. I've never been to Japan, so I love to just hear these kind of stories and get a bit better understanding of the culture.
You should go, man.
I definitely will.
You should go.
It's on my list. So I guess as a final comment from me, you can really see the Japanese samurai influence in the original trilogy really starts to ebb away. You know, like the Luke Skywalker in the final trilogy. There's nothing samurai about him. He's just beat an old dude that's just gonna throw his sword away and call it a day.
What on earth did they do with that? It was the stupidest move I've ever seen. Throw them out of a window. Moving plane out of a window. Whoever made that film is terrible. You know, you've got the 3 original actors coming back. You've got millions and millions and millions of fans who want to see it. And you have this Eastern idea embedded that you could just flow with. And, you know, they've moved on. You're right. He's like really angry, really annoyed. He's like, he doesn't really know much about the Force. Yoda says, oh, don't worry. It's not in the books. It's all here. As if Luke wouldn't have been at that level. You know, he'd have been amazing. Why make him terrible? So, yeah, agreed.
So, if you're happy with our discussion on Star Wars and samurais, maybe we can move on to the topic I'm most excited to talk about today. And that is the Shogun TV series. That was so good. That was so much better than I was expecting. I've not seen the originals. I've never read the books. And wow, this show just blew me away. I was so angry I had to wait a week for the next episode. Oh man.
Yeah.
You know, amazing acting, brilliant display of, you know, the Japanese politics we don't really see to that kind of level. And you get to see like how the peasants live. You get to see how different the upper echelons of Japanese society live. But for me, I would say that's nearly a perfect historical drama.
I agree wholeheartedly. So first of all, let me help the guy who did it. So this is a book not by me, guys. This is a guy by Frederick Kynes, and this is in service of the Shogun, the real story of William Adams. So this is the man. Frederick is the man who actually helped write the film in the background, and he is a specialist in sort of like the customs and manners of Japan of the time. So what you have is actually the author of the book was captured by the Japanese, I think in World War II, and he spent time in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, if I'm remembering my history right. And he was very much inspired by that. And that's why some of the scenes are so brutal. They're really like, brutal. And then, of course, they made the TV show in the 1980s, which this is what I was saying. Star Wars comes out in 77. It's clearly on the, the Japanese idea. And you got to remember in the 70s, you've got books on Japan, magazines on Bruce Lee and Japan and all of this. And of course, you could say that some of the Jedi are Chinese influence as well, because it was a very pan-Asian thing at the time. But then what you get is the Shogun, and it comes out. And apparently Japanese restaurants are opening everywhere because it was so big in 1980.
Okay.
And then 1985 or 1983 or 4, I can't quite remember, Karate Kid comes out off the back of that. So you got Star Wars, which is hammering the Jedi philosophy way, which is basically Bruce Lee karate. Then you get the Shogun. Then you get Karate Kid, and we're in full swing by this point. You're in full like Japan swing. And then they've come, Japan is not cool anymore, and they've come all the way around and redone the Shogun. And wow, what an amazing show. What an amazing show. So it has to stick to the story the guy wrote, but Frederick made a right good job of making sure that all of it was well done.
Yeah, I totally agree. So if you had to pick just one aspect of the show, what do you think this did better than any other samurai-based TV series or movie?
I would say character building, proper character. You instead of this, like Iran, the samurai are just all in the same armor. They run around, and it's like all you ever get is the key players. So, like I said, Ran is like a theatre show. You get the key players, and then the rest of the people just running around, there. But here we zoom in and we focus on those multiple key players, and you realise that some of the samurai were actually Christians, and not many people that. There's 100,000 Christians in Japan in this time, in that time. So remember when we said we needed like a Western lad in Japan? When you got Last Samurai, why on earth didn't do Tom Cruise as William Adams? I don't know.
Definitely a better film.
Well, better film. Why not do that? Because it's not. They don't have to pay rights to the book. I don't think, because he's a real historical character at that time. The book Shogun is only the research of that character. So the historical character is just public domain. He's not. He's not a character made up by a guy. And of course, they did the backgrounds and the cinematography very well. But what a lot of people don't know, because myself included, I didn't know this, but the Japanese they speak is old Japanese, not modern Japanese. So even Japanese people watching it were like, "Oh, wow, you are pushing us to the." It's like watching Shakespeare. You're like, "Oh, right, I've got to focus on this." What's going on?
Okay, no, I didn't know that either. That's really interesting.
If you're interested, I did a episode by episode review of the Shogun, and it's got a playlist on my channel.
Yeah, I'll leave a link to that in the description and maybe one of the pinned comments. So you've given some great explanations of everything you think the show did well. Is there anything about Shogun that you think could have been improved a little bit more?
Definitely, and that is the warfare, right? The warfare. So I've spent 15 years, and I'll show you another book, guys. We've been trying to understand samurai warfare. It isn't just two sides coming together. So I went and found one of the biggest warfare schools we could. It is after the wars, but it's somebody's writing about how to do it. So we've got this, which is the Book of Samurai, and it's the fundamental samurai teachings, and it's the collected scrolls of Natori Ryu. And in that, what we do is basically, it's a translation of an old text. It can be difficult, guys. It can be difficult. So, but we've tried to understand how samurai actually fought. And they fight it's really complicated. They have divisions moving, flanking maneuvers going, different flags going, conch shells going, rituals, esoteric directions that you're not allowed to go in. There was so many layers of things. And I know Frederick from his book, he does more the social side and all of that. So you could see where it was lacking. But I'm hoping that Shogun Series 2 now will bring me on board for the warfare. And I do know Frederick well enough. I'm hoping he will give them a nudge and say, bring Antony on. He'll sort the warfare out.
Yeah. I totally agree. I was waiting for that Battle of Sekigahara, which just never came.
And it was just like, it was like, the warfare. And nobody ever does fight scenes right. Someday, I don't know, somebody's just done, or not maybe just done, but recently, a Conan animation. And it's a fight scene of them just, I think maybe rotoscoping or something like that. But oh my God, it's so good. The angles come in and he's coming down and then it clashes. Everybody who does fight scenes just really do it a bit poor.
Okay. They need an expert like you to guide them.
You know, it's either the old style Errol Flynn, click, 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 and jump
Yes.
around and have action, or it's really just boring, one camera panning across. Like I was really disappointed by Troy, you know, with Brad Pitt.
Yes.
Yes, Brad Pitt does a cool jumping thing a couple of times, and I get that. But and the fight between Hector and Achilles is excellent. But the battles are just literally like from the air, CGI. It's like a computer game, you know. Like, come on, do something a bit more. We know you only need to present there's a big battle, but beyond that, you want to see in the battle and be moving through it and like the blood going and the heads on something, taking a head off. And the one thing that annoys me is I call it the stormtrooper problem. So you're in a battle, you get the stormtrooper gets shot with a blaster, dies. What's that armor for? What does stormtrooper armor actually do? Doesn't deflect anything. So what does it do? So it's the same as samurai. Whenever they do samurai, it's like the guy comes with a sword, hits the samurai, and he falls down dead. And you're like, what's his armor for? If not that. So what you should see in a battle is people with less armor on getting their arms chopped off, knives going in their heads being took off, and then a samurai just coming in, and the next thing the blades are bouncing off him, they're bouncing off his hat. You know, the arrows are pinning in him, but he's just mashing someone. You know what I mean? And then eventually it takes like 5 or 6 to pull him down. But you never see that. Oh, there you go, he died.
One hit kill.
One hit kill with armor across his chest.
Yeah. Maybe they're playing on easy mode.
Totally.
So I take it you're excited for seasons 2 and 3 of Shogun?
Have they announced
some people are not happy. So in one of the articles I read, they said if season 2 goes ahead, they're gonna do a season 3 as well.
Totally happy as long as they keep. So Frederick, who did it, he said the screenwriters listen to him loads. Normally, I've done documentaries, as I say, and I've done stuff like that, and the producer never listens to you. They say, Antony, and they give you a meal, and they say, there you go, you're really important to this show, and you talk, and they just shut you down. Don't care. They want explosions, ninjas, and everything's got to jump around. The director then listens a bit more, but probably takes about 10% of what you care about. You know, rest of it is explosions because the producer's on his back saying we need, you know, all this excitement. And then, but with Shogun, apparently, Frederick said they really, really listen to him. So if it's the same team doing the same thing, it should be okay.
So from what I've seen, all the producers are the same. I'm not sure about the historian angle, but I'm hoping they just bring back the same team because this was just perfect, like I said. So in my opinion, I would say Shogun is probably going to be the best TV show of 2024. There's one called Those About to Die that's going to come out next month. That could give it competition. I'm not sure, but I think it probably will be the show of 2024. Any final comments about Shogun before we move on?
I would say, guys, you need to get in a dark room. You need to get yourself a cup of tea, a beer, whatever you drink. Get a good surround sound system and just enjoy the whole and have nobody interrupt you. It is awesome. And also, you really got to keep your eye on what characters are doing what.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's one of those films where the little details actually make a difference. And if you miss it, something might not make sense down the road.
Yeah. And just by the way, just out of interest, the actor, I've never seen him before, the main actor who plays Blackthorn, he sounds exactly the same as Richard Burton. Richard Burton, the old Hollywood star, right?
Yes.
His voice, it's like Richard Burton reincarnated. I don't know why nobody's ever noticed this before, but somebody should just please play Richard Burton and him side by side. There is no difference. I've never done it, but I was late to that's Richard Burton. It's him.
Apparently that voice he portrayed was very last minute, just improvised, and everyone just kind of thought, that's what John Blackthorne should sound like. If you had to say, like, these are the 3 must-watch samurai films, what would they be?
Right, okay. So, first of all, I would go Throne of Blood. Okay? So, we're going to go for 2 Akira Kurosawa films and 1 Beat Takeshi film, I think. So, Akira Kurosawa, Throne of Blood. It's actually... So Ran is based on King Lear, isn't it? It's a Shakespeare play, Ran. And Throne of Blood is Macbeth. So the one thing they never, ever do in samurai films is make them gothic. Samurai are pretty gothic. They are usually night attacks with burning torches. A samurai film should be a horror film, without a shadow of a doubt. It is like the Sith going to battle. They are going to come and get your head. They are wearing demonic masks. They're usually doing night attacks. They're crossing rivers, and they've got amazing weapons. And Throne of Blood mixes the gothicness of Macbeth with historical accuracy. And now you get a really, really good, dark, sinister film. One Akira Kurosawa is that. Then is Go Hato. So I would say Go Hato. This, I don't know about your, like, some people's feelings now. This is 1999, but it's based on homosexuality in Japan. Sure. But it is like, which is now obviously the biggest trending thing in the world. But this is way before the sort of like the culture war trend of this. It's way before. And I don't know why the LGBT community have not took this film up as like the film. But if you don't mind that bit, guys, and which is historically accurate, by the way, it's very historically accurate. It is an awesome film about a young 16-year-old lad who's an amazing sword fighter. And he gets hired by what are called the Shinsengumi. And they are like really the secret military police of, like, you know, they are hardcore guys. And he does it just so he can kill. And he goes around and it's about who kills who. And it's a murder mystery with sort of like a gay romance, which is random, I know, for guys, but basically it's done because that was what was going on. And he manipulates everybody's emotions and you have to work out who kills who. So very, very well done film. Very, very well done film. And then I'm going to recommend one which is out on the edge, which is actually called Last Nights. And I think I've only seen it once.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And it is like, is it Morgan Freeman and Clive Owens,
I think his name is.
Oh,
might be wrong.
Yeah, I think Clive. Yeah, someone like that. Morgan Freeman. I think. But basically, it's the story of the 47 Ronin. And if you don't know what 47 Ronin is, like, we haven't actually touched on Keanu Reeves' 47 Ronin, which was historically an insanely bad film, but way cooler than Last Samurai. It is the worst historical film you've ever seen. It's basically China in Japan with magic, which like historically doesn't work. But it was cool. There was like some cool effects and all that. But the film of the 47 Ronin, which is basically 47 samurai go and take revenge for their lord, is placed in Last Nights. Well, I would recommend just for fun watching it because it got panned. It did nothing. Nobody ever knows about it, but it's worth sitting there and having a good watch.
Yeah, I've seen Last Nights. I enjoyed it. Did this one have fantasy elements in it as well, or was it just the Keanu Reeves version?
Yeah, I think it's basically they set it in Western Europe, so they set it as like in sort of a medieval, slightly fantastical Western Europe, but a Japanese story. Which actually, I do want to tell you about one of the film, guys. Now, I wouldn't recommend you watch this film unless you are like a hardcore film buff. I took my friends to see this film when it came out, and they were demanding their money back at the end from me. They said, Antony, you have to pay us all our ticket. We hated it. And I was like, okay. But it's an Indian film called The Warrior. Now, you've got to be careful. It's the right one. It's a guy who's an Indian guy, and it's based on a Japanese story, but they couldn't afford to do it in Japan, so they filmed it in India. And it's based in probably 1800s India. And it's about a guy who has to sacrifice his own son. And he goes on this warrior holy journey. And he comes out the other end, throwing away his tools of war and becoming a spiritual leader. And I loved it. I thought it was superb. But it's an Indian film, but it's not Bollywood. Yes. It's very slow, dry, building.
I really enjoy a little bit of a slower paced movie sometimes. So you've given me 3 excellent films that I haven't seen, and I'm going to add them to my watch list right away. So maybe when we do a meeting again, we'll discuss those 3 films that I haven't seen yet, and definitely The Last Nights. And so we'll discuss that next time as well.
And so what we can do, I'll tell the audience, if you guys like this video and it does well, we are going to plan to do a ninja video, best ninja film there is. And I'll give you the history of ninjas if you fancy it.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. I've actually not seen that many ninja films, so I'll definitely be getting some recommendations of those from you as well. But I'd love to do a ninja movie discussion with you at some point as well. If somebody wanted to follow you, what social platforms are best to reach out to get the latest updates from you?
So the best thing you can do if you're just interested is watch a mini documentary I did. I will try and do a pinned comment of it, or it'll be, in all the links. It's called The Man Who Killed the Ninja. And that is my sort of go-to documentary on YouTube. And it's about an hour long. Just subscribe there, guys, to that channel. So it's Samurai and Ninja History with Antony Cummins. And that is, I put videos out every day or every couple of days. So that's the best place to get me.
I followed your channel for a while, so definitely some excellent videos there. I believe you've also got an interview with one of the Shogun historians or producers on your channel as well. So
Yep.
that was really
So
interesting.
that's Frederick. Yep, that's
Yes.
Frederick. We did that. And I have literally just, so you know the new Assassin's Creed?
Yes.
That's coming out, the computer game. I have just finished an interview with the guy who wrote the history of the Black Samurai Yasuke, and it's going up in the next few days on the Shogun's channel, and it's coming on my channel. So there are loads of history about the actual Black Samurai, who's a real guy.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. I'm definitely going to check that out. Anthony, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me today. Really appreciate it. Learned loads. Love to do this again at some point. And Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time. I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, mate. See you later, everyone. Enjoy.